My mind immediately goes to traps, and that's where I wanted to start with. And I
Okay.
want to talk about Cade Cunningham and the Detroit Pistons and the matchup they had with the Houston Rockets. And the Pistons are great, right? They established themselves as the top team in the Eastern Conference. Their identity and their defenses allow them to separate and consistently perform. And I always talk about, Nekias, how the season is a journey, right? We're always
Mhm.
collecting data. We're always trying to figure out what a team is, what do they do well, what do they struggle with, how do they adjust, how do they improve. You learn more and more about a team as the season goes on. And once you know who they are, you can zero in on different things. And so we are knocking on the door of the All-Star break, right? Which,
Mhm.
PSA, by the way, folks, things can and will get a little silly around this time. So don't ride the roller coaster too hard. But once you come out of the All-Star break, after those first few days, it really becomes a sprint towards the playoffs. And so your mind starts to laser in on things a team may have to solve come playoff time, especially if they're
Mhm.
in the contender position, top seed, top 5 seed. You know where they're going to end up, or you know where they're headed. Not necessarily something's a fatal flaw, but something that you want to keep an eye on to see how many teams want to do this to you. What do teams
Mhm.
think they can take away from you to make you not this machine or the team that you are, the performance that you've done well? And how does that team handle it? So I wanted to talk about Cade Cunningham against traps because that intrigued me during the Houston game. But we could dive a little bit deeper into that. Houston actually layered it. They started the game with a guard or a wing on Jalen Duren. They put Alperen Sengun on Asar Thompson, and they, on top of the fact that they were trapping. And so, okay, who are we using as a screener? Is it going to be Asar? Is it going to be Duren? Does it change anything that we're doing? Let's use
Mhm.
Jalen Duren as a screener. Hey, maybe that's a switch. No, it's a trap. We help and we recover. Let's get a switch and we put Kevin Durant in action, right? And then see if they want to switch that one. It's still a trap. And Houston was set on helping and recovering. And offensively, we have to end up working to find something. So, hey, Reed Shepard, come here, buddy. Maybe you'll show, maybe you'll trap. Either way, I'm turning the corner. But I think the brilliant thing that Detroit did was they adjusted, okay, and said, hey, let's get Cade Cunningham off ball. Let him work to get the ball lower on the floor, make the big move so the trap isn't as automatic, and you shift the spacing so the dunker spot is clear and you can get downhill a different way. But it didn't change how Houston wanted to help. And so that's the key battle. What are you going to do when a team is able to figure different things out and able to put you in a different spot? Can you get pick and roll back on the table? When Houston's able to help and recover, how does that affect you? And what do you get to next? And that's where it gets really tricky. You get a pin down to a pick and roll. Cade does a good job of knowing what Houston wants to do, and he's able to mix in rejects to get downhill and open up the roll. I think one thing that we did see, and we talked about this, when teams are looking to attack matchups, right? An offense is trying to put someone in action. The defense is trying to pre-switch it and change the matchup, right? And so we want this defender here. An offense being able to kind of have whoever switched out comes out of screen anyways. Detroit was kind of able to mess with that a little bit, but they couldn't necessarily completely focus in and poke at it in a different way. But they changed the spacing. So K is able to come off the screen. Hey, let's cut from the dunker spot. Let's make sure we clear the wing, get a clean roll, and we can finish. That gets tricky. Duncan Robinson, hey, I'm going to shoot. I'm up here. Hey, I'll screen as well. And then Jalen Duren comes up, and now we get the trap, but everyone else is moving. So it puts you in a different position. And so that's the battle consistently. But I think when you're able to kind of move different pieces off the table, can you get back to your main dish? Because you get pick and roll, you get trapped, you get help. If you don't take that off the table, the defense isn't going to shift. They're not going to move. So even if you were able to have success off ball and get to the wide pin downs and allow Cade to see the space, see the floor, attack and finish, you have to still be able to get back to your main priority, But I like that's the one thing we don't talk about, the adjustment to, okay, we need to get Cade going. Even if pick and roll is not working, if we get him off ball, we can still get to what we want to do. And I think that's something that doesn't get appreciated as much in the battle of, coaches' adjustments. No, we're trying to figure out how to get this back. We're working very hard to figure out how to get this back. That's where it gets fun. And so, like, for me, it's a trap. Obviously, Detroit has to figure that out. I don't necessarily know if it's a secondary playmaker that opens things up because you have to establish that secondary playmaker, Nekias. I don't know if it's just spacing in general or just being more concise with how you want to space the floor. But I think if you're Detroit, that's something you're going to have to work through in the back half of the season to prepare for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. One, fantastic job on that, by the way. I really enjoyed that. Two, it is very funny that we talked about Shea getting the traps from Houston, and now we're talking about Cade getting the traps from Houston. We're just going to talk about Houston's defense very soon and what they're doing. Just a fascinating basketball team. But to everything that you said there, and to just the general Cade point, like this is something that I have asked you about. It's like, just more so a general half court offense thing with Detroit. Like, do they have the requisite spacing? Like, how good is Cade plus Duren in a playoff context? And so it's been kind of fun watching them overall this year just have like a top 10 offense for most of the year. And it's like, okay, I see it. I still have some questions, but I see it. And now you get into these kind of like playoff type field matchups where Cade is getting this degree of two on the ball. Quickly to that, about 38% of his pick and rolls saw a blitz or just two on the ball in general. That was his second highest mark in a game this season. Shout out to the Brooklyn Nets, who eclipsed 40% in one of their games. So it's nice to see that. And I think to answer your question towards the end, I think they need more shooting, period. It would be helpful if they are able to acquire a secondary playmaker that also shoots. You can just kind of cross two boxes at once. But they do need more space, because I think the thing that immediately popped for me as I was watching that game and then watching the clips that you put together, I'm just looking at who's on the floor. I was like, okay, cool. Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson on the floor. If one's in action, we can help off of another, or we can put a weaker defender in one. We're not super worried about it right now. You get to some of the second unit. Okay. Ron Holland's on the floor right now. We can still do the same thing defensively. We still have a similar level of comfort with, we may not want to help off of Duncan Robinson or insert shooter here, but we have a bunch of help points to where we could put two on Cade, immediately take away the role if we want to, and we are funneling shots to someone that we are not scared of. And I think for Detroit, it would be helpful if they add another guy to at least make defenses think a little bit more. Because as you always say, Steve, you get to the playoffs, like, yeah, you have this game plan, and yeah, you have the logic of we're helping off this quote unquote non-shooter. If non-shooter knocks down 4 threes in a playoff game and you win, it doesn't matter how good the process was or how sound the logic was. That guy got points and your team lost. And so I do think, again, you want a little bit more wiggle room if you're Detroit. But I'm fascinated by teams ramping it up. And I was kind of waiting on more teams to decide, actually, Cade looks better. Jalen Duren looks better. We both have those guys as all-stars this year. We're just going to make these other guys beat us if we can help it. It was a very extreme example from Houston, but I do think we're going to see more of it. Like, I think that is, to answer the kind of the question, the theme of the segment, like, I think it is more of a trend. Honestly, I think more teams are going to do it. One more quick thing from me, Steve, because I was looking this up in preparation. Cade Cunningham has seen two on the ball on 160 pick and rolls so far this year. And of 19 guys that have seen two on the ball at least 50 times in pick and roll, Steve, Cade Cunningham's points per possession number on those reps, 19th of that 19-player group. That's not what you want to see. When you have that kind of volume and the efficiency is that low, I think more teams are going to decide, yeah, let's just live with these results until Detroit consistently proves that you can't do that.
I mean, I think it's a tricky balance, because I went in trying to figure out, okay, we've talked about this. How much do you want to trap him? Because you are now handing Detroit, in theory, an opening. We now, as a team that struggles with spacing in theory, struggles with shooting in theory, have you in rotation that should open things up. What happens when it doesn't? And so that's where it gets tricky. And to your lineup point, Detroit's built on defense. So they're going to have some tilted lineups the opposite way. Kind of like if you remember the Memphis Grizzlies, it's like, yeah, we're sacrificing a little bit of this offense because of what the defense is doing. And so Detroit has kind of embraced that dog mentality. And now you have to be crafty to figure out how to navigate teams saying, hey, we don't care about these guys. That's fine, because we need that on the defensive end. Detroit can't tilt too much offensively, because if you lose part of that defense that's been so strong, are you the same team? So, I won't belabor the point, because I do want to get to your trends because they fascinate me. But it's an interesting concept for the Pistons right now.
I like it. I guess the quick question I ask you before I officially flip, and this kind of flows into what I want to talk about anyway, like how important is Asar Thompson to kind of solving this for Detroit in a way? Because of his use, you talked about Cade being used off the ball. Asar can initiate. Asar can be used as a screener. Asar in the dunker spot, if you are putting two on the ball and Jalen Duren's handling, like he can kind of be that low on the floor threat for you. Like, how important is he to help in Detroit with this?
Very. And I think Detroit's, as you mentioned, with everything you laid out, has found counters to make sure that he's impactful no matter what defenses want to do. But that's why the Houston thing intrigued me so much, because if you like think about a team like Boston, they're not going to be afraid to put a wing on a SAR and turn him into something different, or put a big on a SAR and turn him into something different. So it's more, is he going to gain the understanding of what teams are trying to do to him and be able to poke at offenses? Because that's really all he has to do. He doesn't have to be this constant force offensively, but hey, I need to make you pay for this. I need to make you think about how you want to defend me and us. That's the larger scheme. It's a back and forth. It's chess, not checkers, as some would say. I am trying to get you to stop doing this if I'm the offense. If I'm the defense, I'm trying to take something away. And for an offense, all I have to do is poke enough holes into your game plan to make you think, ooh, this isn't going to work.